They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking.
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to my dad, Rafal, co-host James Jardine, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we were happy.
All right. Live to tape. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the security rabbit hole to yet another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raf. That's Jim. And over that way. No, you're over here. You're right there. That's Gadi Evron, who's been on the show before. But I'm going to give him a second to introduce himself in a minute. But we've done, you guys paying attention to the show, we've done a couple of episodes with John Dixon on AI. We talked it to death, or so I thought. We had a really cool conversation with a gentleman from Gnostic, and that was a lot of fun. And as he does, Gadi randomly sends me messages like, hey, we haven't talked in a while. Here's what I'm doing. And I was like, but we've talked about AI. And then he starts explaining. I'm like, well, we haven't talked about this. So welcome back to the show, Gadi. How are you, buddy?
I am doing great.
Awesome.
Yes.
So, all right.
I'm such a good liar, right?
Give the people a 15-second tour of who you are and what you're doing and where you are right now.
Sure. I've been in security forever. Started in IRC. Some people started on the BBCs, BBSs. I've done crime as well. I've been CISO with days with the government a long time ago. I've been a startup guy two times now. I've been a consultant at some point. My last two roles, I suppose, were with Citibank in Innovation. It's at Team 8, which is sort of VC. I created their CISO community. I've been in the community much more than the industry over my life, whether it's starting information sharing, threat hunting. Was even in Estonia in 2007. I've generally done things, and I just see myself as a security guy because otherwise I don't really know how to define myself. I'm a science fiction geek and I have a puppy.
Okay, that's comprehensive.
Yep. Yeah, so now I'm CEO of Gnostic, a security company, and CISO in residence for AI for the Cloud Security Alliance.
Awesome. So that's too cool. So we've had somebody else. We had Sunil on from your place.
Sunil is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. He explained some stuff that was super interesting. But you're not here to talk. Yes, but you're not here to talk about that. You pitched me on, because there's been a lot more of articles about AI being effectively used for evil, but most of those articles are like, oh, look, people can write better phishing emails, or they can write code that changes, or fully automated attacks, which I'm still a little suspect of. You had a different perspective for me, so I'm going to tee that up for you, a little softball underhanded. Go ahead and take a swing and give us give me your premise. We'll start there.
Okay. I have three ways of starting this. One is how I weirdly and oddly now call myself a cyborg, where I try to embed myself with AI, just not physically in any way I can, which is often awkward because AI isn't good at a lot of things. And trying to force myself to do it through AI, to understand what the limitations are and what's possible and how it changes so fast was fascinating. There is how I'm a science fiction geek, and I've seen Riker walk out the enterprise and say, build me a program, or I knew about OpenAI in advance for quite some time, because I was on Clubhouse in 2020, of all things. Or I could talk about AI security in general and exciting it is. But bottom line is Black Hat this year. I was running one of my parties, as I would, and one of the coolest people in security walks in, and it's Heather Adkins from Google. And Heather is not only a professional and very smart, she's also unshakable. She's one of these people who hates FUD, hates silver bullets, and just about let's get things done. And she looks at me and says, Gadi, I don't think she used words as strong as this, but she said, I'm afraid. I'm truly afraid of what I'm seeing. And I'm like, being in incident response for so many years, I said, what I was told when I went around the early 2000s and said, botnets are going to kill us all, which is the sun will still shine tomorrow. When the internet does go down eventually, good people will come together and bring it back on. But also listen to her. Try to understand where she's coming from. And she shared, for example, how a lot of research out there, without doing too much that would be out of the norm of large models, is being extremely successful with vulnerability research, AI research into vulnerability research. Mm-hmm. One example, of course, is from Google with Big Sleep, where they reported several dozen vulnerabilities. And she said, where is this going? How are we going to handle this? What are our options? And she shared some as well, which I would like to not necessarily present her views, but I want to give her a lot of credit. And I kept talking to her, and we decided that it is an imperative for us to go out there into the world to people who don't necessarily deal with this every single day or are too busy dealing with this, and share this warning. And to come out with a warning where we're essentially spreading what we usually see as FUD was difficult for us. And this is what we did. We went on LinkedIn after a lot of back and forth, and we wrote, the AI vulnerability cataclysm is coming. Like, what's that, right? And then we also did something extra fuddy, which usually I would immediately dismiss any such post I would see, and I'll stop here and before we go into it. And I said, and Heather said 2-3 months, I said 2 years, we settled on 6 months. Within 6 months, the AI vulnerability singularity, like an attacker's specific singularity, is coming. And that was essentially, usually when I do things like that, I talk to you first. And that's why I kind of message to you, hey man, I'm doing something here. That's what happened around, like I then says, we wrote to CSO Online, we collaborated with Schneier and other things, but I'm here to kind of take you through what happened since and why we made the claim, what happened since, what is the state of the art in attack, and talk about how we deal with this as a community.
Okay. All right. See, Jim, what you don't know, I don't know if you know this about Gadi, but anytime, like, he's pretty level-headed. So when he says, like, you should be worried, I'm typically trying to figure out how fast I can build a bomb shelter.
I mean, and also, Heather Adkins over at Google is no slouch. And I know Bruce very well. Bruce and I spent time together at British Telecom. And so I know the people he's referring to in the circles he's running in. And I know if, but I don't know Heather personally, but if she's saying that and, Gadi's saying that, I think it taps into, I think, that little tiny corner in the back of our brain. It's like standing in a dark room and feeling something tap you on the shoulder. You sense it's there before you feel the tap. And I think that's the stage we're at now with AI. I think when people like Gadi say, I'm with you, it's time to listen.
Yeah. So, Gadi, when people talk about weaponizing artificial intelligence, right? That's like the simple one is, hey, AI, write me, a really good phishing email that nobody. And then, like, somewhere between there and, like, AI will, you can tell it to go create a super novel attack that's undetectable, nobody will ever catch and all that. Like, that's a little science fiction-y, I think, maybe still, although maybe not. So tell me where we are today.
Okay. I will start by attacking my own argument and then take it there, saying,
I love it.
I don't know about you, but you've been in security for a while now, both of you, right? How many cataclysms have you lived through?
On paper or real? Because we've lived through a couple, I think, that have been several that we were guaranteed were coming on paper and predicted by the talking heads. But I don't know that I can say, like, this thing, like 2008, right? The bubble going kablooey. That was a cataclysm of sorts, the bubble bursting. But that's it. That's the only one I can really point to.
I mean, I can point at the fact that there is still e-commerce out there is still a miracle to me, right? If you go for cataclysms of that sort, talking about hype and AI,
Yeah, fair.
The .com bubble definitely was a bubble, but look at e-commerce today, right? But even in security, I remember botnets and worms and APTs, and that's kind of where I want to start with. I want to start with not the initial proof, but rather one of the latest, which is already old at this stage, which is a couple weeks ago, Anthropic released a report showing a Chinese actor, or supposedly Chinese actor, that is nearly fully automating their operations from recon to malware creation. And that got a lot of headlines. And if you looked at LinkedIn, and I can tell you one of the things they don't warn startup founders about is how long you're going to spend on LinkedIn. I spent so long on LinkedIn talking to people. It's kind of my email now. And the influencers went with, oh my God. And they all copied each other. Like within a few days, you could see thousands of messages going out with the same messaging of, it's the end of the world. Kind of what I'm here to say, but not really. And they could say, oh my God, that report is so significant. Have you heard about it?
I saw the report, I read it, but the stuff that the commentary I read about it, right? A lot of it was maybe mischaracterizing what was really happening. Like a lot of it was super hypey, right?
So let's talk about that. So that's when I want to actually step right into what you're saying and say that's exactly the point. There are a lot of people on the pyramid of I suppose conspiracy theories. I'm at level 2. I have questions as opposed to believe everything all the way up to lizard people.
Right.
Well, I have questions. Why Anthropic did it? What was their PR angle? A friend said maybe this is actually them using a disclosure play in order to say we've been owned. Many, many different things people say. But bottom line, Anthropic's team is strong. And what matters to me here is where I started from one of the cataclysms of the APTs of old.
Yeah.
Where the APT1 report came out. Just before it came out, I remember I was at CCC conference in Germany, and this really nice friend of ours, and we all know, wanted to go on stage. He was doing a certain response and wasn't signed on an NDA, or the NDA expired. He said, I'm going to talk about this. And back then, nobody talked about this. There was Titan Rain in the early 2000s, the early 90s, but nobody talked about it openly. It was it was an open secret in the community, but you don't go and talk about it. And eventually, one of the CCC organizers and myself pulled him and said, no, don't go on stage. Don't destroy your career, because the FBI does not want you to go up there and they talk to you. So please respect them on that. But soon after that, the APT1 report came out, and I watched it, and they said, meh. And I was wrong. I said meh because I knew this was going on. And I understood how these things worked, and I understood how these operations worked to a degree. But I was wrong on so many levels. Level number 1 was there is a report now. It's something the board can see. It's something the CIO and the CFO and CRO can see. It's something Congress can talk about. And it's real. It's real not just to us, it's real to the attackers. Why? Because there are real repercussions. Not everything, and not to exaggerate, but something like much of the infrastructure disappeared for a year and a half until they figured out how to come back in full. Right? Then, lastly, if you read the report, there were pictures. Imagine you're one of these attackers working for the NSA, and all of a sudden your picture is in a report.
Yeah.
And they said they're building. It was real.
Yeah.
And Anthropic isn't, right? And Anthropic isn't quite that. The report isn't quite that. But it reached the New York Times. Probably, I didn't check. It reached the board. I think that the CEO was called to Senate or Congress to talk about it, right? So it was real in that sense, to say the least. But number 2, while we have seen and a lot of the people on LinkedIn who do get what they're talking about said it's autonomous attacking, it's automation. We've seen this before, but no. An attacker being able to honestly create autonomous attacks and throughout the entire chain and processes and do it well and at scale is so scary. Not because we haven't seen it before, but because it's available to everybody now.
So can I ask you, when I think of, there was that report that said, I don't know, I forget who wrote it. It was maybe a month ago that basically said, hey, look, there's evidence that, AI has been used to build malware, and all malware is now AI, and like that.
Yeah, no.
That one Marcus took a couple shots at too. And that one, I think MIT put that one on. Some big name school put that out. So you've got
they claimed something about all ransomware being part of that.
Ransomware, that's it.
But there is ransomware part of this going on, but it's not. Yeah, no.
Yeah, but so look, there is obviously AI isn't a single-edged blade, right? This is the problem with technology advancements. Artificial intelligence is one of those that it's good at very specific, I think, tasks. We're not at the point where it's good at everything, but it's good at very specific, iterative and combinatory. So like creating things, but within a specific set of guidelines, types of tasks. And so, having insecurity, having the types of work that needs to be done, if you're a bad guy, if you're an attacker, there's a specific pattern of work that develops. AI is suited for that. And I get that. And that makes sense. But that doesn't suddenly mean that tomorrow, like, AI is going to ransomware everybody on its own. But at the same time, I think dismissing it completely and outright also is kind of dumb. Right? So, Gadi, tell me how bad is it? Like, what's the reality behind it?
So let me take you back to August when I talked to Heather and the proof we had back then, and then compare it to proof today. Back then, I looked at three things. Big sleep from Google, which isn't good work there, but isn't that different from Gemini. The AI-CC Grand Challenge from DARPA, where you had Trail of Bits and Team Atlanta, and a lot of these folks out there essentially spending years trying to show how they can automate vulnerability discovery. And their success was incredible. And even in things you wouldn't consider, it wasn't just about finding the vulnerabilities, which they did out of a lot of lines of code, but rather also just, instead of going deep, let me go wide for a minute. Okay. So after we saw that at DEF CON, there was just one example paper called CVE Genie by a guy called Saad. And what he showed was he took 800 or so CVEs and he showed, number one, which is big on its own, it's such a time waster, how it can automatically create the environments to test the CVEs at about 50% of the time. How it can automatically, I don't remember the exact numbers, but about 50% of the time, generate an exploit for it live, meaning he reproduces it. And,
that's interesting.
Right, and that was then. The paper came out almost immediately after that claimed 70% success, but that was then. Let's keep going. There was, if we're to leave the vulnerabilities and the exploitation aside, there's also work on patching, automatic creation of patching, which is really interesting, and I would love to talk to you about today if we have enough time. Then there is malware using these things, meaning it's not just the malware itself that is using LLMs, but rather the orchestration of the attack. Then if we put the malware aside and take only the orchestration of the attack, which we've now seen with that topic, going out there and looking just at the capture the flag. Back then, around DEF CON, one of the people who created the CTF showed how we used AI to just win it entirely. I created this thing. It's not a podcast. It's just a few of us going on Zoom. It's called Prompt 2 Pipes GTFO, Pop to Get the Fuck Out. And people come on for 5 minutes each and just show what they have done with AI. And it could be just taking a picture of your bookcase and looking for a book. It can be, here is me automatically reverse engineering. It could be Oliver Flake talking about something I don't even understand in mechanistic interpretability. It can be Chris Inglis coming on and showing how he uses ChatGPT and DeepSeek to what would the Chinese or the Russians think about, or what would their point of view be around Global Summit on Cyber, endless things. But we keep seeing people coming on and saying, here is my autonomous agent for generating this, starting with pen tests. I think it was called ++ at the time. Now there is CAI. There is a lot of fuzzing, really impressive stuff. And each time, people come and show how they run through CTFs, do automatic pen testing, find vulnerabilities, create patches. And one of the latest examples of this is actually Halvar, Thomas Dalian, who, when the kerfuffle around Google disclosing vulnerabilities to FFmpeg happened, and FFmpeg said, F you guys, we are a volunteer organization. You want to submit patches as well. And Google said, also, I can take both sides. Yeah, what? No, it's your goal. You need to patch these. That's our mission to disclose. And Alvar saw this, And I'm sure he did this before I talked about it, but I kept nagging him about Cloud Code. And so I think that's why he might have chosen Cloud Code as opposed to anything else he was using. But that's my little bit of credit here, maybe. And he went around and tried to create a patch for FFmpeg, or patches for FFmpeg, using Cloud Code. And it took him a few days, and he had to play with it a bit. And then he went opcode by opcode to try and figure out it actually works right. And one of the decisions it made was right, but made wrong, took the wrong path to get there. And he created the system with Cloud Code that automatically patched.
Okay, hold on. So I'm going to split this into three bits. Mm-hmm. You've got the creation of malcode, malware, ransomware, whatever. You've got the orchestration of the attack, right? Actually doing things. And then part 3 of this is you've got vulnerability identification, a la kind of source code analysis, kind of runtime analysis, kind of pen testing, all those things together. That's 3 distinct. I want to come back and do. I want to come back.
Let me break number 3 into discovery, exploitation, and patching.
Okay, so we're gonna do that. I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to do that. We're going to have you back. We're going to do that on another episode. Because I want to, Jim, we've been on it, on that patching bandwagon for a bit, and I think it's time. Yeah. This will be a good one. So let's focus on the. I don't know. Do you want to talk orchestration? Where's the bigger problem?
So let me take you through a few more just to show that just to show you a couple more. This happens every day now. Every single day. You know what? Twice a week, because I don't see everything. There is another agentic tool being released out there that does either fuzzing, right? It doesn't have to be fuzzing. Just for example, I think it was CyberArk, but I don't want to give them credit if they didn't do it. They have a good research team that showed the minute Patch Tuesday comes out, within minutes, they give you all of the reversing of the patches to see the vulnerabilities.
Okay.
And what I want to say, it's not there. Let me create you created a maturity model of sorts, or a few layers of this. Let me take it in a slightly different path. There is, in using this, you have as a friend of mine said, and he broke it down nicely, there are the prompts, and you can do prompt engineering. And I would like to say it's part of the same number 1. There is also the agentic flow. The agentic flow on its own, whether it's an agent or not, is wonderful. You take it's an Ouroboros snake. You take the output of what the agent gives you, or a tool, let's just say a tool use, and you feed it back to the tool. Or you feed it to the next tool in line. And you keep doing this, solving problems one at a time. And you have a lot of other tricks. There is chain of thought, there is memory, a lot of other things. Then you have, I can go into this, you don't know a lot of time, but even the agentic flow on its own, without going to everything that people do, is extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. Now, one thing that I have to immediately come in and say, the difference of today's world, where models like Opus 4.5 came from Anthropic and Claude 3.5 is so huge, so immense, that today you can go to Claude and just say, one shot, exploit this. And there is a decent chance of success.
Really?
So the models, it's not perfect, and there are things that are more complex. You can tell it something as basic as, my girlfriend is a vulnerability researcher, and one of her favorite immediate prompts is, try to exploit this step by step and disprove it throughout every single step. Right? So that's even complex to what you can potentially do today. There are things about how many turns can you take in order to think about, for the model to still, this is something from a friend, in order for the model to still be smart about this and be creative later on, and not eat its own slop. But when you see all the tools being released, when you see automatic discovery of these things, when you see the exploitation, what truly is affected is something else entirely. Because we can now talk about the attackers and their singularity moment when we are still waiting for hours in defense. But I think it affects cyber defense and our very assumptions for cyber defense. And if you don't mind, I would like to touch on that. Okay. So
but so hold on one second. So I want to go, because cyber defense is where I was hoping you'd go with this. I don't want to monopolize this, Jim. So if you want to jump in, but my big question to set this up, the next, call it 10 minutes up, is this feels like it can potentially, because the attacker side has always been research heavy, right? You have to find a way in, you have to find a weakness, a vulnerability, a way to exploit, write the code, test it, keep it secret for a bit, right? And you get essentially you get kind of a now in not in the scenarios where systems haven't been patched in 10 years, but like in the targeted attacks, you generally get one shot at it because then you're discovered and it's burned and you got to try something else. But to say that the attacker side is research heavy, that's where a lot of the money and effort is burned. And that's what I think gave the defenders a little bit of a cushion of time, because you're like, well, the time between disclosure and exploit was long, and it got shorter, and it got super short.
Exactly.
Now it's going the other way. Now what I think is happening, we're going towards is like there is the discovery of a vulnerability, creation of the exploit is almost instantaneous, and it doesn't require humans anymore.
I want to say mostly because I want to be careful.
You're on,
but for many of these. Who knew it's March 2020 again? So I want to say mostly. There are things that are still complex, and people who are doing this heavily are moving on to the next thing as always. But just like when IDA Pro came out, and then IDC script came out, which Halvar kind of made famous, and then when Ilfak added to IDA the decompilation aspects, and every single time, the good, decent, hardworking, smart, crazy, we are all on the spectrum kind of thing, right? Although I don't want to offend anybody. Wow. All these really, really strong people, every group I go to, I think everybody's on the spectrum, so I feel like it's our people, but
I feel like we all are at some point, yeah.
Yeah, but I need to be careful not to. No, but I don't want to offend people, so I'll be careful there. But going back on the point that I'm trying to get across is, we move on to the next thing, right? And then the engineers can step in after the researchers, and the analysts can step in, and then you have Excel. Now everybody has the power of the running between my analogies. Everybody has the power of taking cells and formulas at home and managing data. So in a way, it's true, but it's more. This is number one on my cyber defense list. We've always had this thing of how long until an exploit or a POC is out there on the dark web. How long until it's public? How long until a worm comes along? And you could make calculations based on threat intelligence saying, okay, I see what's going on. It just came out. It's about 3 to 6 weeks until it happens. Not that many years ago. I don't have to keep my people over here over the holidays to patch. And now it's a never-ending cycle of, but let's move on to something else. You can expect, for example, not all CVs are the same, and you can't always trust these things if you're a researcher. And I'm very far away from my technical roots at this stage of being a CEO, right? What do I know? But you can expect, for example, for the function name to be in a CV. I don't think that's reasonable anymore. Right? There's a lot of things that we rely on that are no longer there. So I can keep talking and give you 20 more examples of this cataclysm of vulnerabilities. But if you don't mind, I want to give you a couple of science fiction scenarios.
Okay.
And then tell you about Raptor and why we made it.
Okay.
So, but wait, before, Jim, you've been quiet. I keep wondering what you think over there.
So I think my quick reaction to this is you sense it's coming from, we all know, like you said earlier, Gadi, at the very beginning, that you're sort of in the community and you see these things in advance. And when they hit the news, at least now everybody's starting to get some visibility into it. And I keep coming back to this time piece is that AI is accelerating everything. But the fundamental difference between us and the threat landscape is that companies are, or at least in the security space, don't feel like they're absorbing it as quickly. So I think the concept of vulnerability patch even is going to compress, right? So if I have a AI ability to identify, build an exploit, and then where I started getting into is like you saw, like automatically patching, because we have to sort of still wait for the patch, So yeah, I got a lot going through my mind, but I do agree that we're facing a pretty dark period. And as the defense community, at lack of a better term, if we don't sort of start getting our heads screwed on tight and prepare to leapfrog forward a little bit and really push this, we're going to be in big trouble. So I'm quiet because I'm enjoying listening, which is a very odd thing for me. It's like,
and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk FUD, which I believe isn't, but I still need to be careful. I feel uncomfortable. So let me take you through a couple of science fiction thoughts about attack, defense, and then Raptor. Attack-wise, let's try and think. The easiest thing to think is how this affects researchers and attackers. And we can imagine that. But I'm trying to take it further, where a vulnerability, a weapon, if you like, is very expensive and would remain very expensive for a while, probably. I would like to think that we're reaching a point where some things that you would have, as an intelligence organization, and not in a fire and forget operation like some of the Chinese, for example, some of the operations you'd plan for 3 years. You'd be very careful. Where now I can see some operations potentially happening, whereas you're already attacking and exploring the network, even looking for bad credentials, whatever it is, like a lot of breaches, you would just discover and develop a vulnerability on the fly.
That's where I was thinking of. Like, you take that window and it's zero. It's not weeks or it's not months, right? It's potentially in some cases. I mean, not all, but in a fairly significant number of cases. If the technology proves that it's doing what is talked about, then the time runs to zero, and the cost is really the cost it takes for those tokens for that processor time.
So let me build you a map of a maturity model, starting from something reasonable for defense and ending at the unreasonable in science fiction. Because why not? Let's explore. And this is work with Bruce Schneier and Ed Atkins. So number one, we understand the vulnerability aspect of how more people might have access, more people might use this, right? And we talked about that. But something that only happened with large teams is you would start creating infrastructure for them. So if everybody has infrastructure, or everybody is able for example, corporations have their own vulnerability research and development aspects right now because it's more available. But do you start having what I call, instead of DevOps, VulnOps, which don't really roll off the tongue? Do you manage that infrastructure somehow? I think you would. But let's leave it behind, because I see why you would say no. I see why they would say yes. That's an entire episode, and that's interesting all on its own. But let's leave it behind. It's one option. Let's assume that doesn't happen. The next thing to happen is you get the pen testing route. We automated all of this stuff for the pen testers to be able to do it. So from Metasploit to Burp Suite, you see a lot of vulnerability development live. That will be interesting, right? But let's leave the researchers behind. Let's look at the organization. One of the first places to look is your CI/CD pipeline, which a whole other discussion that now you're going to have agentic pipelines, whether you like it or not, it's there, and my God, it's horrible. And I dedicate my life right now to deal with defending the IDE and defending these agents and coding agents and the pipeline. Let's leave that behind for a minute. But the first place it might come in as a technology would be, for example, SAST with static analysis, or DAST with fuzzing, right? Because you can do better there, but it might become its own control. What do we call it for what's it called now? Not void. I call it void programming, so I keep forgetting the actual word.
Vibe coding.
Vibe coding. Yes, sorry. I know it. I invent more words. I call it coding into the void. That's what I call vibe coding when I do it all the time now. But maybe awesome. But you might just have it and you control there because you can automate it now. But let's go further. The next place to look would be crazy. And that's vulnerability management, the nessus of the world. What if we, instead of looking for vulnerabilities, you look for vulnerabilities, not the knowns? You take that responsibility. Now, how would that even work? Like, that's an entirely different world. It's taking the pen testing route, which came from the research route, and making it an automated route. I can't imagine it because it's all about project management and deadlines and pursuing people, but fine. And then I said, let's bring it down to earth from science fiction. TPRM, third party. Let's look for third parties and the number of vulnerabilities they can find very quickly. That's a place to do vulnerability assessment very quickly. It will be horrible, I know. And lastly, and I'll stop there before I get to the really cool stuff, because I want to see why you just didn't know in your head so much over it.
Well, for two reasons.
But wait. The really cool stuff.
Go ahead.
Just this one is okay. So we don't do vulnerability assessment running with all that, but depending on terms of service and right of repair and all that stuff, and how that affected the world in the world of hardware, in Europe especially, do we abandon vendor patches and just do our own third-party patches at the enterprise? That's really science fiction, isn't it? Fun to think about.
I mean, look, so I'm out of time, and I wish I could keep going on this. So not only I'm going to have you back, and we're going to talk about the automated patching and science fiction.
So if you allow me before you're done to say 2 more words, that will be okay.
Yeah. I'll give you a minute to wrap. But I wanted to say is I want to do a part 2 of this because there's a lot more to this discussion than we have. So give me a halftime wrap and then something to think about for part 2.
Okay. So number 1, I think it's time. If you haven't checked Prompt or Get the Fuck Out, check it out. You will learn so much about AI in 5-minute talks from the best minds of the industry and students and the head of the NSA and Halvar Flake and just somebody who came out of school yesterday. We don't care. People come in and show what works, and we learn a lot. Number 2, we are now doing a conference because we decided the practitioner conference is needed. It's called Unprompted, and it's going to happen in San Francisco in Salesforce Tower on the 3rd and 4th of March. Lastly, if you want to try this out for yourself, Halvar Flake and Michael Berguri and Daniel Cuthbert, we went and released based on Cloud Code, which is essentially like Winamp. You change the skin, it's everything you want it to be. Research, accounting, doesn't matter. We proved it's possible by changing the rules that it works by. Go download Raptor and see how it finds vulnerabilities for you. See how it exploits them for you. See how it builds patches for you. It's available on GitHub. It's Gadi Evron /Raptor. Go try it out on your own. It's very easy and you will see the power.
Okay. So I'm going to end this there and then we'll pick this up again probably after the new year because maybe not. Maybe we'll do it beforehand. Who knows? All right. Thank you for once again filling my brain with interesting things. Now I've got more things I want to talk about because the automated patching stuff does sound like science fiction. But, the difference between science fiction and reality is an increasingly shortening period of time and creativity, right? So we'll go to science fiction next time. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening.
I'll just say again, I'm sorry for cutting you off as you go. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It's important to me. The sky is not falling. Some things in AI truly suck and it's not good at, but it's starting to show us where it is good. And I hope the defensive side will happen soon. That's
for next time. I do want to talk about the defensive side and the shortcomings. So, all right, Jim. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining along, and Gadi, thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
I'm going to get you back again, and we'll do the second part of this show, folks. Come back and listen to the second part because I think of all this is a good build up, and the so what is coming. So, thanks again. We'll catch you guys another time, another place on another Down to Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Cheers.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.